There's a lot to unpack there, but did you say it was the family-owned seedling?
Yeah, seedling. My parents have a tree nursery business. They're getting out of the business now. They're in retirement age, but I grew up in this family business. So I grew up hearing over the dinner table in the backseat of the car all the family business issues with employees and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of live and breathe, I feel like, the life of a small business owner in many ways, because that's my upbringing. And now in working with, law firm managing partners or other small business owners, I feel like it's a wonderful convergence of my upbringing and then with the law background as well, helping attorneys.
Welcome to the Renegade Lawyer Podcast, the show where we ask the questions, why aren't more lawyers living flourishing lives and inspiring others? And can you really get wealthy while doing only the work you love with people you like? Many lawyers are. Get ready to hear from your host, Ben Glass, the founder of the law firm Ben Glass Law in Fairfax, Virginia, and Great Legal Marketing, an organization that helps good people succeed by coaching, inspiring, and supporting law firm owners. Join us for today's conversation.
Hey everyone, this is Ben Glass. This is the Renegade Lawyer Podcast, where I get to interview people each episode who are making a ding in the world, sometimes inside of legal, sometimes outside of legal. Today, I'm recording this on January 2nd, 2024, so it's a great day to be talking to Joan Claire Gilbert. Joan is an executive coach and attorney coach out in Arizona, where next year's summit will be. So hopefully we'll see Joan at the summit on our stage or helping us in some way. And Joan also, if you notice, is start to write some articles for us for the Great Legal Marketing Journal. So Joan Claire, hey, thanks for carving out some time for us.
Yeah, wonderful to be with you, Ben. Thank you.
Before we went live, I said you and I sound like, at least I feel like we're sort of kindred souls. We're trying to fix the legal profession from the inside out because, as you and I both know, like so much of one's happiness, I think, in the profession starts with the way you think about yourself, think about life, and then how do you build a business that supports whatever is happiness for you, really.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your journey. Because you are also an entrepreneur, by definition. On top of all this, you're running your own coaching business. Yeah. But let's talk a little bit about that. Like, where have you come from?
Sure. So I grew up in Oregon and went back east for undergrad at Princeton and then to Notre Dame Law for law school, and then headed back to Portland to begin my law practice at a boutique litigation insurance defense firm. I was there about 2 years and I had my first child, and there wasn't an option to do part-time. And so I decided to stay home with her. She was borderline premature and really wanted to spend that time with her. But pretty quickly, got a little bored being the full-time stay-at-home mom without the intellectual challenge, and began doing in-house work for my folks' business. Actually, they're a seedling nursery back in Oregon. They have about 50 employees or more, and did a lot of employment law related work for them while I raised my daughter and then had my second child 20 months later. And then I actually got some severe autoimmune health challenges that developed in my back, late pregnancy with him, and then into the years ahead as a young mother with 2 young children. And that's kind of where my course eventually led to personal development, was because I was always seeing the problem out there and feeling all the stress and anxiety, practicing law part-time, being a young mother, homeschooling also. And it wasn't until I really got into personal development that I found a lot of relief from the stress and the internal, anxiety and frustration that I was feeling in my life with my family life and some other things. And that's how I became a coach really about 3 years ago.
There's a lot to unpack there, but did you say it was the family-owned seedling?
Yeah, seedling. My parents have a tree nursery business. They're getting out of the business now. They're in retirement age, but I grew up in this family business. So I grew up hearing over the dinner table in the backseat of the car all the family business issues with employees and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of live and breathe, I feel like, the life of a small business owner in many ways, because that's my upbringing. And now in working with, law firm managing partners or other small business owners, I feel like it's a wonderful convergence of my upbringing and then with the law background as well, helping attorneys.
Everybody has their unique set of gifts, talents, and interests. which you are born with or develop it. And I think that, our roles here on earth are really to take whatever that combo is for each one of us and to go explode it onto the world.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is that nobody else in the entire world has your same unique combo of these ingredients.
Yeah.
And, so often, I've just celebrated passing through 40 years in the profession.
Wow.
And so often, you see lawyers who are not fully happy, if not fully depressed, but they're not fully happy. I think in part because they've never given themselves permission to look at their combo and to then ask, like, how could I really use this out into the world?
Yeah.
So let's talk about that for a moment, because I imagine that you see that in the coaching business, because people probably don't come to you if they're fully happy, energized about either the firm they own or the firm that they're a part of. Like there's something there that caused them to reach out to you. So let's talk about some of the things I think you see, and now then we'll give some advice to people who may find themselves feeling like, oh, she's talking about me.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, so I would say that one of the big things is, as a managing partner, a lot of us, as attorneys, we're not trained in leadership skills and emotional intelligence training. And a lot of what I've received as a blessing really is being a coach of a lot of that emotional intelligence, mental fitness training, self-awareness of your thinking, right? And so the managing partner may be experiencing some troubles with a few talented associates that he has, or maybe some law firm administrators that are in conflict, or even attorneys in conflict among his management team or her management team. And I, as a coach, can come in and provide that neutral kind of perspective to help them understand what is getting in the way in their thought patterns into their performance and their productivity and their ability to relate well to other team members, the whole collaboration piece. So I can take that piece off his or her plate in some sense, and allow him or her to focus more on the management of the firm, on the business development and so forth, and the marketing, right? Because a lot of that people management part is not something that I would say a lot of business owners or managing partners enjoy. Whereas for me, that's what I love to do.
I shouldn't have to do it, they think, because these people are smart, they're intelligent, they knew what they were getting into.
Yeah.
And yet at the same time, we see, professional athletes paid millions and millions of dollars who have performance coaches. And you would think, well, why do they need anything else? They're getting paid a ton to do their thing, to play a game.
Right.
So I have you in my life, Sammy Chong out of Toronto, who I worked with now for probably at least a decade, probably we go back. Wow. And when Sammy and I first got together and was again, like your clients, this was foreign feelings and foreign, talent set for me. Mm. And my first reaction when I heard a lot was like, Sammy, this is really woo-woo stuff. I don't, really. And so I'm curious now, as you deal with some managing partner probably who's been referred to you. Joan Claire is the one. Go talk to Joan Claire. Yeah. And you start talking to them. Is there resistance? Is there, this is awesome, and where have you been all my life? What do you find their responses to be?
Yeah, well, I feel like there's a full spectrum there. I feel like the managing partners who already have a sense of the importance of what you might call emotional intelligence or mental fitness. I'm thinking of one in particular who already was very interested in organizational psychology before he became a managing partner. So he already had some baseline understanding of the importance of it. I think that's very helpful for them to see the importance of this work on self-understanding, self-awareness of our thinking, ability to empathize with yourself is really key to your ability to put yourself in other people's shoes. And so I would say that the people that come to me, I feel already tend to have some baseline confidence that this is what their employees, what their team members can use to improve their performance, right? If there's just a disbelief, I don't think that's going to work, I don't think they're not going to be interested in having a conversation. So.
They're probably not making their call.
Yeah.
Yeah. You said something, you used a phrase, empathy with yourself. Mm-hmm. And I think that this is so important for those of you who are listening to this is, I would say, giving yourself grace, like understanding that while, yes, most lawyers, you've worked very hard, you're smart, you've had to pass a whole bunch of tests along the way to get to where you are. And oftentimes the person that we forget about, I think, is ourselves.
Yeah.
Like finding that.
For sure.
And so you went through this journey, as I understand it, with this autoimmune spinal arthritis.
Yep.
And did that then take you into finding, in part, personal development specialists who could help you with, sort of the non-medical side? Is that how you found this space?
Well, so it's really interesting. My husband's actually a formerly practicing attorney as well. We met at Notre Dame Law. He was getting into personal development because he was interested in entrepreneurship and starting a side hustle and so forth. And everything he was reading was talking about gratitude. And he was just like, what's up with gratitude? Why is this, And so I started seeing him absorb that. And then I got interested because I saw a shift in his being and his demeanor with our middle child who's having behavioral challenges and so forth. And so I became interested. And then once I got into it, I saw a lot of benefit in my own sense of well-being. Right. And so I had seen all the medical specialists, the rheumatologist, and was managing my autoimmune disease by my diet and, my faith, my faith background. But I had never played with my thinking in a deep way. That's nothing anyone really trained me to do in my elite education at Princeton and Notre Dame, right? So it was a total new world for me. I was like, wow, this is amazing. I get to actually choose my thoughts. That's like a novel concept, right? You might hear some trite thing like you choose to be happy, whatever. You read a book and it's kind of, okay, that's great. But on a deeper level, actually practicing that's when I really noticed some shifts. And then I started to share my autoimmune journey with a Facebook group for women with autoimmune challenges. And then I really wanted to have the one-on-one conversations with them. So I decided to offer free coaching. And that's when my husband suggested, you probably should look into coaching, see what it's about before you put yourself out as a coach. And I Googled actually it and found an amazing program, had a lot of Steve Chandler. If any of you are into personal development, you probably know Steve Chandler. He's got a number of books out there. And this program had a lot of his material in it. So I joined that training program. And then the 4-month immersion program to get certified as a coach. And through that program, I had a lot of peer coaching and a lot was uncovered in that 4 months. I'll just say that. A lot of even some trauma from childhood that I had not had the opportunity to really face on a deep level, even though I had done some EMDR after a bus accident in Argentina. It was through coaching that allowed that safe space for those patterns from childhood to really emerge. And that's what really allowed the freedom to really go deep and see what was there and then come up and develop some new patterns of relating to myself, really, that empathy and the way I think as well.
It is such a complex journey. So two things. One, for those who are listening to this, you can go back and listen to my interview with Cord Bass-Knight. Cord is also a lawyer doing this work for military veterans now, like reinvention of career and learning EMDR and how to EMDR. I know a little bit about it, but the other thing, and you may not know, we have 9 children, 4 adopted from China. And, all 4, when you live in an orphanage your whole life, either to age 18 months or to age 12 years, there's trauma there. There's just by definition, there's trauma. And so our whole world was changed as Sandy and I relearned everything we thought we knew about parenting and started to go to trauma conferences and brain development conferences and really seek out experts. Yeah. And it really changed. You said something that I don't want people to miss. In relationships with people, whether work, family, whatever, the thing that is hardest to change and yet the thing that has to change first is yourself. Right? We always want to change the spouse or change the partner. I can fix you. And yet we find it so hard to change ourselves, I think. Yeah. And so my question to you would be, what are some of the leverage points or keys? You mentioned a couple for yourself, but for many lawyer clients where they can maybe even start to work on, even as they're listening to this interview or shortly after, even before reaching out to, where they can start to call time out, do some introspection. What are the places that someone would start?
Yeah, what I'm hearing and what you're asking is some practical tools to just get on their way, right? So I would say a key thing is just to practice what I call mini mindfulness reps. It's not like you need to have a dark room and sit on a cushion and meditate and learn how to do that on a deep level. But if you can just slow down the thinking and allow yourself to just drop thinking for even just a minute or two throughout the day, maybe 4 or 5 times per day, especially in the morning when you start the day, train your brain to be aware of your thinking. That's really the key, is fundamentally self-awareness, right? So if you start to notice those thoughts that you're beating yourself up, many of us, it's just white noise because we're so used to it. Maybe we heard it from our parents or from some other parental type figures in our life, and we started assuming that own voice of that inner critic within ourselves, right? So if you can just drop the thinking and in some level develop a self-command of your mind, and really to do that is to focus on one sense. So as I'm standing here talking with you, Ben, I can focus on the weight of my feet on the ground as I'm talking to you. So I'm actually, doing two things. But if I were to totally do this without just totally focus on the mini mindfulness rep, I would drop all thinking, probably close my eyes unless I'm taking a walk, and just notice the weight of my feet on the ground and really get grounded in my body. And that is a wonderful practice because you're beginning to start to train your mind to see your mind more as a tool than have your mind rule you, right? And be sabotaged in some way by your own thinking. So I would say that's a great way to begin to practice self-awareness. And once you have more of a practice of that, it's easier to go inward and relate to even connect to your heart, I would say. We talked about the self-empathy because you've already have a practice of kind of going inward and having kind of a meta observer stance with your mind and your thinking. And that'll really give you some great foundational skills that will allow the coaching to be much more effective, or the other work that you do, and having insights into how to improve your relationships and your work and all that.
I think this is, speaking from personal experience, this is hard for most lawyers who are, especially if you're in any sort of a litigation world, right?
Yeah.
Where it just seems like the to-do list is long, everything is sort of conflicting or conflicted. Yeah. And so what I want people to do, as you listen back to what Joan Claire just said for a few minutes there, is to give yourself permission really to do this. And it is not only okay, but it's really necessary. And one of the first things that I worked with Sammy was he used those words. He said, just, you want to learn to be an observer.
Yeah.
Like, so when the world is swirling around you, again, whether that's intra-family conflict or raising kiddos, or it's coming into the office, or it's dealing with adversaries. Mm. And I would simply tell people that you can learn to do this. You don't have to be born with it. Most of us aren't. And you can learn to really mentally take a step outside of the lived experience and kind of watch. And it sounds, so now if you're hearing this for the first time, it does sound woo to me when Sammy first said it. Yeah. But I will tell you that is so foundational. Now, do you think there's a difference, men and women who come to you in sort of A, accepting and giving themselves permission, but then B, sort of executing some of these initial strategies? Is there a gender difference?
I've worked with mostly women, so it's a little bit hard for me to have a very balanced perspective on that. But I would say it's equally possible and practicable, if you would use a lawyerly term, to practice this. And even though we have the idea of it, it's hard to take time to slow down. We're so busy as litigators, whatever. Literally, the ideal is to be able to do these mindfulness reps as you're doing your work, like as you eat your lunch, right? Just put the cell phone away and really notice the textures and flavors in the food you're eating, and not look at your email at the same time, right? Like, we have this idea that if we slow down, we're going to lose a lot of time and productivity. But across the board with my clients, it's the slowing down really is so effective with speeding up, right? Because we calm our nervous system. We get to have a wider view perspective of what's important. And that is so key to avoiding burnout, to having focus when we're doing our work and not having 3 or 4 different things on at once with our phone and our email, right? It's a lot of slowing down to speed up. And that's a hard pill to swallow, I would say, for a lot of attorneys initially. But especially when the managing partner is funding the coaching, I think the attorneys especially appreciate the opportunity to learn these basic fundamental well-being, productivity practices, I think you might say. It's just like a life skill, and it helps them in their personal relationships and everything. So I'd say that it's not always the first thing that attorneys are going to look to for help, right? But once they learn it, they're so grateful.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the first thing because no one has ever, they don't even know that this space exists.
Exactly.
Many of them, right?
Yeah.
It's just like what I say about business and marketing. Like, you didn't get that in law school, you don't get it in the profession. It's sort of like even shunned.
Right.
And yet, one of the ways to happiness in the profession is to run a good business that runs and makes money. Like, you can actually be happier serving clients you like serving it and working with a team of people you like working with.
Sure.
And the other thing is, I think most people, if they reflect, like, what are lawyers really paid to do? I think we are paid at the end of the day to come up with a strategy for our clients, like a strategy that gets the client to, a win. And yet we get so, especially if you're working, I have many friends in the insurance defense side, so this is no cut on them.
Mm-hmm.
But when your value to the firm is based on how many hours you actually work, versus thinking, well, here's the one big idea that can change the nature of a case that I got while I was in the shower.
Sure.
That is the changer, right?
Yeah.
And so when your compensation scheme is based upon activity,
right,
as much as is upon, experience and trying to figure stuff out, I think that makes it hard. And you worked in that environment the first couple of years of your profession.
Yeah. Well, and in these mini mindfulness reps and slowing down, actually, I found it helps increase the hours, right? So there's the idea like, oh, if I slow down, my hours are going to go down. But I found that it's the opposite is the true. And you get the added benefit of what you're saying of like in the shower or on your walk and taking some breathers throughout the day. And that's when the intuition, those insights kick in that could switch, the strategy in your case, right? So I'd say it's a win in both cases. You get higher billable hours and you get access to increased intuition. So there's nothing to lose. There's only to gain in my perspective and the client.
We know there's only to gain here, but it's getting through the initial, perhaps resistance and then habit. So one of the things I did before I had a lot of physical office space was actually for a couple of years, had a separate office in a separate little town that I paid very little money for, that wasn't hooked up to the internet or anything, where I could just go.
Yeah.
And sometimes just being in that different environment. And I know people they go to a coffee shop or work at home. It's not the same. It's not the same as choosing a different environment where you can hang out and you are disconnected. And now you can just think
really
both about yourself and about your cases and stuff. One of the things that I think we have seen the world of lawyers and executives over the last few years is this explosion of coaches, right? So many coaches.
Yeah.
And people saying that they're coaches. And it can often be hard, I think, for someone who recognizes they have a need and would benefit from somebody good to figure out who that person is for them.
Sure.
And you aren't going to be right for everybody, and everyone's not going to be right for you. Like, we get that.
Yeah.
But what advice would you have for someone who may be listening to this and saying, oh, she's talking to me? Of course, you can reach out to you and we'll let them know how to do that. But in terms of vetting somebody like you.
Yeah.
Hey guys, this is Ben. If you like what you've been hearing on this podcast, not just the marketing and practice building strategies, but the philosophy of the art of living your best life parts, you should know that my son Brian and I have built a tribe of like-minded lawyers who are living lives of their own design and creating tremendous value for the world within the structure of a law practice. We invite you to join us at the only membership organization for entrepreneurial lawyers that is run by 2 full-time practicing attorneys. Check us out at greatlegalmarketing.com.
What questions should they be asking or experiences should they be having?
Yeah, well, I make it easier, I would say, on prospects because in general, I tend to offer at least 1 or 2 coaching calls to prospects that are interested in having a conversation free of charge so we can get to play with what would it look like to have this be an ongoing endeavor for us to work professionally. I would say, just if what you're hearing here is interesting and, you can imagine having some time each week to slow down and be with a person and have them help you see your own thinking and how it's getting in the way and you feel there's a rapport there, then that's a I think that's a great sign that it could be a good mutually beneficial relationship. I produce content pretty often on LinkedIn and Facebook. And so I think that can be a good way to get a feel for who I am and my own values as a coach. And, I think sometimes it's just there's intangibles there that really can't if you get a sense that this person is someone that you would love to learn from, and their being is something that you would aspire yourself to have within yourself, then I think that's a great sign. It's for me, like in choosing my own coaches, I would say it's a lot of intangibles. I like to work with really smart coaches. So people that are very intellectually bright. And I think a lot of attorneys do appreciate working with me because I have practiced law and I understand their lifestyle and the content of what they're up to. So for me, that I guess I'm just thinking from my own perspective as someone that's very intellectually bright, has a beautiful heart of service, and just can create that slowed down space for me to have my own insights while they're providing some valuable, possibilities for me to think differently.
Here's the thing I have found of high value is to have that person in your life who's not really like your friend, right? Who's not your spouse, who's not your life partner, who's not your business partner,
right?
With whom you can share really high highs. Hey, this is cool stuff that we did this month and we killed it.
Yeah.
And with which you can share, here's the thing that I'm struggling with,
right?
That I can't even hardly express, or you're afraid to express with those who you're most in love with, I guess.
Right.
And so having that person who can be objective, who has this experience, and particularly which you have, Joan Claire, which is working with lawyers, so you understand the space.
Yeah.
I think that's been really highly valuable for me.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. So great legal marketing, a lot of what we do is we help lawyers elevate from the lawyer doing everything and believing that they're the only ones who could do everything, to elevating them to sort of CEO status, to running a real business that letting go of the vine and having other people run and deal with clients and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so then the level after that is kind of like, how do I develop the next generation of leaders?
Yeah.
And the issue is you'll have lawyers who are great lawyers. Like you bring them in, they're great. Like they're better than you are, right? Litigators, writers, whatever, researchers.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we want to go, all right, that's like you could move up the totem pole and you could be a leader in the firm.
Yeah.
But we and others in our great legal marketing have found that to be a challenge for any number of reasons. Usually fear, I think. Really letting go of the vine. What advice or words of wisdom or words of confidence would you have for someone, or even recommendations you have for someone who's like, I've got someone in the firm who really should and could be like next generation leader.
Yeah.
Take over.
Yeah.
But we're not good coaches.
Yeah.
Oftentimes.
So what would I advise in that case? Yeah. I mean, I feel very confident that I could work with most any attorney that's willing to be open to coaching, right? You got to have someone that's willing to be coached, right? And is open to growth, to help them to practice fundamental leadership commitments, I would say. I'm very passionate about this book called The Collaborative Way, actually, which I have here. And it has 5 core commitments that will build a collaborative team if practiced across an organization: listening generously, speaking straight, being for each other, acknowledging and appreciating and honoring commitments. And when you have a team of people it's a shared commitment to practice this and continually and hold each other accountable, you're going to have so much more growth in the firm in terms of innovation, in terms of productivity and profitability and engagement. So those are some core commitments that I work on with my clients. And I really encourage law firms to adopt these as a shared commitment from the top down, from the managing partner and his or her management team, and have it be practiced throughout the culture of the law firm. So I have an 8-week program to help organizations with that. I also am doing some consulting work with the Collaborative Way if you want to have them come in as consultants. And I've just seen in my own work with law firm administrators, with attorneys, how important these practices are, because there's oftentimes expectations that are not being met because there's not a clear agreement with a set deadline, or associates or partners don't feel comfortable speaking straight with each other. They don't want to, rile. It's funny because we're in a very conflict profession
Yes.
where there's conflict, but we're not comfortable with dealing with conflict within our own law firm, right? And so we tiptoe around people, or we don't speak straight. And that leads to a lot of lost opportunities and increased cost over time when those aren't addressed, initially as they
It
could
is
be.
funny, litigators not wanting to hurt somebody's feelings.
Right. Or maybe it's they don't feel, they're afraid of how it'll react, or, it'll ruffle someone's feathers. And so it's an interesting dynamic there, right? That the profession itself is very conflict oriented, but then within our own organization, these are leadership skills that really need to be practiced. And without any kind of training in that through undergrad or law school or into your law career, how do we expect people to know, even to practice these, right? It's just like anything else. You need to learn it and practice it. And so I see my role as I can come in as that, you might say, expert, and I'm not an expert in that I'm not learning these things anymore, but that I'm steeped in it and I'm very passionate about it. And I can help that person one-on-one, that emerging leader or the team of leaders, begin to adopt these practices as a way of being in their organization. And it's going to give them a whole level of competitive edge that most law firms don't have. So.
Oh, for sure. And even like if you even look at like the lawyer wellness programs, the ones I've seen and have sort of studied a little bit, the very top level surface, based on the individual, not so much based on the corporate whole.
Sure.
I'll tell you the way we try to do that here is, first of all, Brian and I, when we got together to my son and I to run the firm, is we said, like, what are we really doing here? So our whole reason for being is we built a firm where we built a business where people will thrive. Like, it has nothing to do with getting justice. Those are all byproducts, getting the most money you can deserve, all that stuff. But if the owners aren't thriving and the team isn't thriving, then the clients, it's hard to serve the clients. If the owners are thriving and the team is thriving, the clients will be well served. Yeah. But here's our mantra, and we really try to live this, which is, if you're working with us as an employee or a partner or something, we're asking you, Joan Claire, how could we make this perfect for you? And what we say is, look, Joan Claire, I can't guarantee that we could deliver perfect.
Yeah.
But if you don't know what perfect is for you, and you can't communicate that to us, then it's very hard to shoot for perfect.
Sure.
And we have found that. So the hard part is getting people to believe that they can actually honestly answer that question, and that we'll listen and that we'll try. That's the first time you hear it.
Right.
But we really try to impress that and ask that over and over again, team meetings, whatever. Yeah. And as a leader, you have to be willing to listen, right? And I think you have to be willing to try. And the person who's answering the question has to be willing to have their own ideas, because all the good ideas don't come from the leader.
Sure.
And the other thing that we do, I think, pretty well is, especially at our leadership level, is we can debate and we can disagree, and we can, and I don't want you to hold back, right? But when we walk out of the room, like, we're aligned. Like, even if your idea didn't get bought into, and that happens to all of us, like, we're aligned for the good of the business.
Yeah, for sure.
And it didn't start, overnight. It's taken lots and lots of coaching, both at the individual level and at the corporate level, because we have individual coaches like you, and we have corporate coaches here. But I agree with you. Like, if you can get this part, everyone's a good lawyer. Like, everyone's a pretty decent lawyer in your community.
Sure.
Right? But this part is the golden part, I think.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And what you described, I want to acknowledge you for taking that leadership and leading your firm that way. And what I see in what you're sharing is just really being for each individual. Like, we're being for our mission as a law firm to serve our clients in a certain way, but we're also being for each other and for each other's best. And to me, that's so fundamental, is when we can consciously be for each other. The whole questions of, like, how are they going to react, or, that pleasing way that so many of us are just ingrained in us from childhood, to please others instead of to truly serve, right, to the best outcome and people's success. A lot of those questions and wasted time and energy just washes away, because we can just really focus on being for what the organization is up to and being for each other. And it's a beautiful dynamic when you adopt that.
And what you and I are talking about is, I think, quite deep. And it's a shame that you almost have to go out and discover this for yourself. And it's just not taught anywhere inside the profession at all.
Yeah.
Who inspires you? You mentioned the book, The Collaborative Way.
Yeah.
Who else do you read, listen to? If they were speaking, you'd fly to be there. Who do you like?
Well, yeah. So the founder of the Collaborative Way, Lloyd Fickett, he and I have had some conversations. He's been really inspiring to me in this organization that he started with consultants. I'm actually a leader of a group called the Ultimate Coach in the LinkedIn community. And it's kind of called the Being Movement. But Steve Hardison is here, a local coach called the Ultimate Coach. And this book is really about who you're being. So it's written in some way, you might say, as a biography of this man, Steve Hardison. It's a thick book. It's a thick book. It's like 400 plus pages. So I don't,
And the title of that book is The Ultimate Coach?
The Ultimate Coach, right? Yeah, it's by Amy Hardison. It's by his wife. He's currently alive in Phoenix and Mesa, actually. And I'm a leader in that group. And I'm really passionate about bringing being, in part through the collaborative way, into businesses to help businesses not just think of tactical, strategic kind of measures to improve profitability and marketing and so forth, but really to help them focus on who they're being as an organization, as a team. And this is what I was speaking to with the collaborative ways. When we focus on a shared way of being that's proven to be hugely beneficial to not only engagement, but productivity, the sky's the limit in terms of what you want to create that way when you have everyone. And then initially there may be some people that don't want to work that way. And those people may, leave. And in my mind, that's a win, right? If people don't want to have that kind of value system.
Well, 100%. And so, another sort of mantra is if this place isn't good, if you're not good for me and this place isn't good for you, then you're just in the wrong place. And we'll help you try to find that place for you. Because again, everyone has a unique set of gifts, talents, and interests, and there is a place for you.
Yeah.
So who is your ideal client? Is it, I guess it's law firms that engage you. Is it also individual? So most of the Great Legal Marketing tribe are smaller firms, typically maybe up to 5 lawyers, typically 1 or 2 owners, typically teams, maybe up to 25 people total.
Yeah.
Is that your space too, or are you up the corporate ladder a bit in terms of size?
Yeah, I'm looking to expand into larger size organizations as well, even outside the legal field. But I would say in terms of individual coaching, I do both. I do individual coaching, I also do team coaching. I've worked with a couple like law firm administrators that have been in heated conflict affecting the whole culture of the law firm, that kind of thing I really enjoy. I just really enjoy taking people aside in that coaching space and helping them get clear on their thinking and how that's creating the problems out there. Really, that going back to what we spoke with initially, just the self-awareness of how we're creating it all inside of ourselves. And most likely, if you're like most people, you have so little awareness of how much you're creating it inside yourself. But once you do, there's so much power there and freedom when you get to experience that. And you get to be more playful and creative with everything in your life when you see how much you have that within yourself.
You have to be a good leader. I think you have to be courageous. One of the exercises, so every year we go, our leadership team is off on a 2-day off-site retreat with a coach. Ours is coming up in the law firm, I think, in 10 days. One of the rounds that we typically do is, hey, everyone goes around and say what I appreciate about you, Joan Claire.
Yeah.
And then we go and do an exercise where everybody gets a chance to say, Ben, here's something that I see about you that maybe you don't see about yourself. That would be awesome if you could change a little bit. And that is a high trust exercise.
Yeah.
Right? That's the first time we did it is deep.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, it's one of the best things that we've ever done. And then we make individual commitments for the year, having now listened to the other leaders on the leadership group, right? We make commitment. But you can't do that with just anybody. I think you develop your leadership team, you develop trust. Yeah. And so I just share that as an exercise.
Beautiful. Yeah.
You do.
It shows a high level of trust in your team to be able to do that exercise. You've developed that over the years, that culture, to allow yourself to do that. Yeah. Okay,
so if people listen to this and they would like to reach out to you, I saw somewhere do you have a book yourself?
Yeah, I do actually. I have a couple. I wrote last year a book called I Am Powerful, and it's about growing your own business while being your best. But this is the book that's more toward attorneys. It's called Up Level From Within. 10 actions to boost your performance as an attorney while also improving your well-being and relationships. It's currently on Amazon. I'm just getting it reformatted currently. It should be in its final stages, and within a week. It's just the print was a little small. So, but yeah, there's 10 actions in here that I've found in my work with attorneys to be really, some quite simple and some a little more in that, pleasing versus serving, expectations versus agreement kind of thing, to help attorneys really improve their performance while improving their well-being and relationships.
You use that phrase a couple of times, pleasing versus serving.
Yep. It's a
What
big
is
one.
that?
So
Yeah.
pleasing is kind of, I would say many of us have this default way of pleasing, like wanting people to approve of us and think good of us, right? And, you're doing great, that kind of thing. Whereas service puts us in a different stance, a way of being of truly, what is truly going to serve my colleague, my client, the law firm here. And it takes the focus off of ourselves and more on others, right? But not in an unhealthy way, right? Because when we're focused on service, it's coming from empathy, right? It's coming from love for ourselves as well, service of ourselves as well. So, but that stance is a really important distinction, I would say, that is one of my recommended actions, is taking a serving stance versus a pleasing stance.
One of our mantras is, what can I do for you first? All of our referral partners, our vendors, even, the folks we rent space from, the folks who serve us, who, bring the Amazon packages to us.
Right.
Wonderful. Website?
JoanClaireCoaching.com. So just my name, my first name, and coaching.com.
And you're big on LinkedIn, as you said.
Yep. And I'm on Facebook as well. I post there as well occasionally. But yeah, those are my two main social media channels. And I'm open to giving workshops or presentations or talks to law firms and their teams. And very excited about the collaborative way and bringing leadership training into law firms and other organizations. So
we're very excited about having you as a contributor to the journal. Yeah. And last thing, kid, I think you said three children?
Yeah. That's
age,
right.
Range and interests. What are they doing?
The 14-year-old daughter has her own business doing natural bird toys for parakeets. We have 2 budgie parakeets, so she's got a cool business going there. She's kind of
entrepreneur.
Got her. Yeah. 12-year-old's really into soccer, and is my 6-year-old son as well, 2 boys. They're all at the same school here in Anthem, Arizona, which is on the north end of Phoenix. So. All
right. And you're a good soccer parent that does not yell the referees, right?
Yeah, I don't do much soccer myself. I'm more of a runner, kind of a outdoors enthusiast. Love to surf in Hawaii and surf skate out here in the desert. So
very cool. Joan Claire Gilbert, it's been great to talk to you today. We look forward to working with you some more, and
thank you so much.
Most certainly meeting you at our summit in Mesa in October.
Oh, it'd be wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thanks for your time.
Okay, you as well.
Bye.
Bye.
If you like what you just heard on the Renegade Lawyer Podcast, you may be a perfect fit for the great legal marketing community. Law firm owners across the country are becoming heroes to their families and icons in their communities. They've gone renegade by rejecting the status quo of the legal profession so they can deliver high-quality legal services coupled with top-notch customer service to clients who pay, stay, and refer. Learn more at greatlegalmarketing.com. That's greatlegalmarketing.com.